like, imagine the worst thing that could happen and then plan for that. You can hope that that doesn't happen, hope for the best, plan for the worst, assume that there's a possibility that someone is going to break down your door and like drag you kicking and screaming out of your house, V for Vendetta style. Michael Knowles is someone who I had never heard of until quite recently. It's like yet another white guy whose name I did not ever want to learn. He is a contributor to the Daily Beast, is it? He's a contributor to various far-right publications, and he has his own podcast thing, his own kind of show like what we do here called The Michael Knowles Show. We're all pretty much the same amount of narcissistic, calling our shows after our own names. No big deal. It's the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's site, same site as Matt Walsh. Okay, so no wonder they were retweeting each other. That makes perfect sense. He has been showing up on my timeline for a little bit now, like a couple weeks now, basically, because he keeps saying stuff about, you know, banning transgenderism entirely and apparently attacking gay rights and marriage equality. And I have been, you know, putting off getting around to this, which is sometimes it's a good thing that I take forever to get around to covering the news, because that way we don't have to do multiple short segments about Michael Knowles. We can do one bigger segment covering several different videos that he has published. Because at first he was just saying this stuff on his show, but then he also made a statement at a Republican like CPAC meeting. And like apparently there was a certain kind of positive reception from the audience. So, you know, we're gonna go through some of this content and see what's what here. We have a couple of clips from his actual show and then the CPAC thing. So we'll watch 3 clips from him to see what this is about. So yeah, the CPAC, for if those are not familiar, is the Conservative Political Action Conference. So it's like where a bunch of conservatives go to talk about their platform and the direction that their party is going to go. And they like, it's kind of like a mingling meet and greet for fundraisers, potentially, like, who are we going to support? And like, oh, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you. Like schmoozing, you could call it, is something they do. And then they give like talks. And yeah, it's something that happens in the lead up to the election. It's extremely lame, right? It's probably the most lame. I typically have pretty strong opinions about how you should be protecting yourself from COVID still. This is one thing. The CPAC, you know what? No masks allowed at CPAC. You have fun, guys. Oh my God, you guys have fun. Go for it. You know, lock the doors, turn the air conditioner off, stay for a few days. Yeah, go for it. Thanks, babes. They do like big music on a big stage with lots of lights, and out comes like some guy who says he hates gays in a monotone. It's truly an embarrassment. Oh my God, it's crazy. So here we go. Michael Knowles, what are you talking about?
In order for women to have the right to have their own bathrooms, you have to ban transgenderism entirely. You can't just ban it for the kids. It's got to be
Yeah, so I don't know what he was saying leading into that clip. I don't even know what lead up could possibly be happening to make that statement okay. He's just like, nah, you got to ban transgenderism entirely. Like, in order for women to have safe public bathrooms, you have to do this thing. And it's exactly the same argument as was used against the idea of there being lesbians in the bathroom with women. It's like completely ignoring like a lot of abuse happens between like adult men and adult boys, and it can happen in the men's bathroom. And like nobody is trying to segregate men out of, like, men are the people who do this more, like the sexually assaulting people in public more than any other group. So like, why is it not that we're making cisgender men have their own separate bathroom, or like a children's bathroom versus an adult bathroom or something? I'm not saying that these are perfect solutions, but I'm just saying, why is the solution to a problem with men attacking people that we then have to legislate trans women's rights down? I mean, I know that they think trans women are men. Yeah, I get that. But, you know, like, it's not, that's ultimately the problem. I forgot about his face. I always confuse him with that other guy, Matt Walsh. Well, the difference between Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh is that Michael Knowles, at least he has a chin going for him. There is that. Anyway, what else do you have to say, my dude?
Entirely. In order for women to be able to have their own locker rooms at the gym, you have to ban transgenderism entirely.
And he's not even saying you have to make separate but equal spaces. It's literally just ban it entirely from public at all. Like, you could easily be like, oh, you know, we need to have more gender neutral family restrooms, like those ones that it's only one toilet in a room, like one toilet, one sink, sometimes a little changing table in one room with a door that locks. Like, you could even say that that's the only appropriate way to do it, but no, you jumping all the way to just nope entirely. It has to be gone.
In order to protect businesses from having to participate in weird occult sexual rituals, like
what? It's a literal witch hunt. Like, it just, that's wild. That's wild. I'm sorry, we're stopping so often. We've only gotten 23 seconds into this video because he is managing to condense so much crazy bullshit into a small, tiny amount of space. We have to protect businesses from having to participate in these weird occult sexual practices. Like, what? It really makes me want to get like a pentacle tattoo somewhere on my body. Like, it truly just makes me want to lean in. Oh God. Anyway.
Like the transgender transition. You have to ban transgenderism entirely. I love this bill because it is so much more aggressive than the other bills we've seen. I don't mean to knock the other governors and the other state houses. They've done a great job laying the groundwork rather. But this bill goes much further, and it reminds us of a...
Yeah, so I think that he is referring to the bill in Arkansas, which was, this has actually been attempted in a couple of different places. Like, their new thing is that they are actually trying to make it a sex crime to be transgender in a bathroom near a child, essentially. So we haven't gotten into that on the channel yet because it's a fairly new development as of this past week, but we will get into it. He's so close to the point. Just ban gender. Just ban gender. No more gender allowed. Oh my gosh. But no, yeah, this is getting increasingly ridiculous. It's, you know, we got to make fun of it because what the hell else are you going to do?
Truth in politics that Republicans all too often forget. You're either on offense or you're on defense.
Yeah, so he's just saying we need to go on the offensive against this marginalized group who is like has no power over society or anything.
You're either making gains in the culture or you're losing ground in the culture. There's no standing still. There's no status quo. There's no neutrality.
Honestly, I really wish that Democrats understood that, because that's how these people think. They think if you're not winning, you're losing. You know, like, they really do seem to think that they always have to be pushing. And Democrats have a tendency to just be like, meh, 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 no worries, meh, meh, meh. Surely society will not slip backwards if we just, you know, tell them to keep getting out there and voting, and let's not do anything about gerrymandering. Like, everything's fine. That's why we're in this predicament, because Democrats are the fucking worst. Like, they are not on your side. They're not trying to help you. They don't want to help you, or they would be. They just want to go to brunch. Like, that's what Democrats want. They want to go back to brunch, babes. That's what their entire, like, political aim is, to just, like, not have to think about difficult things.
And what the conservatives have screwed up on for at least 50 years now, probably more, is the libs make some crazy aggressive play, and then we try to dial it back by about 5 to 10%.
That's fucking Darvo right there. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. That's literally exactly what they've been doing, is they do some crazy shit, like try to make abortion illegal, and then, like, we're like, no. So instead, like, oh my God, it's just the exact opposite. Like, it's just the exact opposite. What crazy radical forward motion has the left made in the last 50 years? But also, like, let's think back a little bit. 50 years ago, there were, I guess, some leftist pushes that happened like 50 to 60 years ago. Yeah. What was one way that society suddenly became much more progressive, like, about 50 years ago? Does it have anything to do with, like, Martin Luther King? Like, I don't know, man. It seems like they just don't want anything to be progressive, even the tiniest bit. Yeah, exactly. Literally, Leah, you said it right as I was thinking it. Like, anything, even the tiniest bit of progressive to them is, like, radical. Even the tiniest little changes. So yeah, if suddenly it becomes like an issue to try to segregate black people away from white people, they're gonna be like, oh my God, how dare you infringe on our right to not be around black people? Like, fundamentally, it's the same fucking thing. If today, when like a feminist, like a radical feminist, like a second wave feminist is like, I have a right to have a bathroom that doesn't have transgender men in it, which is the way that they say it, that doesn't have trans identified males in it. Fundamentally, what that is that's a belief in the idea that you have the right to not be around people that you think are icky. It's exactly the same boohoo white women like getting black men lynched because they said that they looked at them too long. I'm so uncomfortable, he might hurt me bullshit. Like, it's crybaby bullshit. Cry bully bullshit. Oh my God.
Or worse, we try to slow it down by about 5 to 10%. So the libs attack the family through feminism. The fundamental
attack the family through feminism, because the conservative position is that you should stay with your husband no matter how much he beats you and molests your daughter.
Political institution. They claim that men and women are basically the same.
We are one of the species that is the least sexually dimorphic of the species that are sexually dimorphic. It's pretty hilarious, actually.
That takes the culture pretty far to the left, and then conservatives try to inch it back a little bit, but not by the...
Also, he's saying this like in the aftermath of having gotten rid of Roe v. Wade on the national level. How can you say, oh, the thing that's wrong with conservatives is that we have been incrementally like letting leftists win, but actually they've been incrementally taking away the right to abortion to the point where they succeeded on the national level to take away the national guaranteed right to an abortion. So it's not even... It's just continually like, I'm such a victim. You guys are taking away my rights. And, oh, you can't even be a Christian in this country anymore. Like, cry bully bullshit. God.
By the time they're even thinking about inching it back, the libs push forward with the normalization of other sexual practices. Gay rights, among other things.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah, so he's fully just being like, gay rights, we also want to roll that back. I was inferring all the parts where I was suggesting that he was like taking issue with racial equality. That was conjecture, but he straight up just said gay rights was like a leftist conspiracy that conservatives have allowed to take over the culture. Like they're like, oh, the conservatives, we're losing the culture war. Oh, man.
By the time the conservatives are trying to dial that back, the libs, they've lurched much further to the left. They're trying to redefine marriage now. They say redefine marriage. Well,
we've also only had gay marriage for what year was it? Y'all, what year was it? 2000. When was it that it became legal on the national level? 2015. It's literally been less than 10 years that it's been legal in the United States, much longer in Canada, of course. It's been legal in the United States for less than 10 years. And he's sitting here going like, that was an unnecessary lurch to the left that conservatives allowed to happen, and our country is on the decline because of it.
Well, I don't know. I guess we could come to some kind of terms with a civil union. And by the time you say that, whoop, they've lurched even further to the left. Now they're saying, actually, we've got transgenderism. Actually, now a man can become a woman. A man can become a woman, okay, but...
We've also been, again, like, I don't know how many times I'm going to have to say this over the course of my career, but we've been around for fucking forever, trans people, and it's not new. Seriously, go watch some Jerry Springer episodes from the 90s. It's not that new.
Maybe we shouldn't do it to by the time we say that, whoop, oh my gosh, we're all the way off the screen. Because now they're trying to trans the kids. And
trying to trans the kids, as usual, making it into a verb and not about the fact that children have the right to exercise their autonomy, because they do.
There are many conservatives now who are saying, look, if you're a man and you want to put on a dress, that's fine, but just don't do it to children. Just don't make me pay for it. No.
Yeah, so my man is fully like, you're not even allowed to play dress up. Literally, we're not just rigidly enforcing the sex binary by preventing you from getting hormones and stuff, but we also think that it's wrong for there to even be such a thing as gender non-conforming cis people. Like a man who wants to dress like a woman, like that describes both, like it describes trans women and like cross-dressers in their framework. Like, so anyone who just like the new thing where like men like to wear dresses sometimes, even homophobic men can wear dresses. Remember that one guy with the heels and the pencil skirts and the really muscly thighs? He's like homophobic. So you can be a homophobe and want to wear skirts. This is going to hurt their own people. You not allowed. You're not permitted. And truly, what about kilts? Are kilts masculine enough? Is that going to be okay? Let's check out this second video from his podcast show thing.
That I called to ban transgenderism entirely. I made the point that if you want women to have their own bathrooms, if you think women ought to be able to have their own locker rooms and not have to look at gigantic, gross men while little girls are getting changed, if you want...
Yeah, they're really preying on that disgust button. Like, gigantic, gross men just fundamentally ignores the biological changes that people go through. It also like demonizes like adult transitioners because it's harder to pass when you transition as an adult, but then they also won't let kids transition. Like, truly everything about this is like, there is no right way to be trans. We don't want you to be trans. And if you are going to be trans, we're going to find a way to make it impossible for you to exist like outside of your house. And even then, we're also going to probably try to make it illegal for you to get access to transition so that you will forever, for the rest of your life, remain a hulking, disgusting, ugly man, quote unquote. Jesus Christ.
Any of those things, you have to ban transgenderism entirely. It's not enough to say, well, you have to wait until you're 12 or whatever people are saying now. It has to be the whole thing, because if men have the right to behave as women and identify as women for the purposes of public life, then women can't have their own spaces. And we as a society cannot have our own standards and norms, and we're not allowed to live according to reality. We have to live.
I mean, if you have to rigidly, constantly enforce a sex binary, and if you have to like disallow people from getting access to hormones because it does materially change your physical body, like the more like and like the more you're like, oh, we can't even teach children this because if we teach children this, then they'll become trans. Like, literally, you're just conceding that your worldview requires a ton of like work to maintain, just constantly. They consistently admit that the concept of like a rigid gender binary that doesn't allow for any cross-contamination of gender expression or behavior or any of that shit, it's just they're constantly revealing how thin and weak their position actually is. And they do really focus in on the trans women. Yeah, they literally want trans men in the women's bathrooms. I mean, I really don't think that they think about trans men at all. And that if you are a trans man, you're basically like in a lot of cases going to be better off just trying to go to the men's room. You know, they're going to be policing gender nonconformity in women's rooms more than in men's rooms. Although it's not unheard of. I've even just read a story today of a situation where someone was being policed in a men's room on a college campus by a private security guard or something. So yeah, I don't know what's going to actually materially happen with trans men in the women's restroom. I think that most trans men are probably just going to go to the men's room because it'll just, you're not trying to risk your safety in order to like get a gotcha on a rules lawyering situation. You're not going to risk. Because what's going to happen if you as a transgender man go into a bathroom and you have a beard and some woman goes, because you have a beard, and then her husband comes in there and then he tries to rough you up and you say, oh, well, you didn't know this, but I actually have a pussy. Then like, what's going to happen to you? Like, what do you think is going to, like, what's the next step as a trans man who just revealed to a violent cis man that you have a pussy? There's like only a couple options. Most of them are not gonna be good. The odds are not in your favor, my dude. It's not realistic to expect that trans men, that situation would ever even arise. They believe that the gender binary is natural while simultaneously enforcing a culture that instills the gender binary in basically everyone. Yeah, I mean, it's supernatural, which is why we have to constantly brainwash and police people into staying within these rigid categories that we supposedly found naturally, but actually it's like a deliberately enforced edict from God, basically. What are androgynous people supposed to do? Die. Just like all the rest of the trans people. Like, they just want you to die. It's not difficult, to figure out. They want you to be dead or like stay at home, get sepsis, get a UTI, get a bladder infection. You know what I mean? And they did, yeah, back in the day, they wanted to prevent gay people from using the washroom, claiming that they would be predators by default simply for being attracted to people that use the same washroom as them. For sure. I remember being a young person who like heard things about like, like we had a really masculine PE teacher at one point, like a female teacher PE teacher who just happened to be pretty masculine. And I remember there being some like, I don't know if she should be in the, like, just comments from like parents sometimes. So that, I mean, that was happening when I was younger, like 15, 20 years ago or so, whatever, like closer to 15 probably realistically. But yeah, okay.
According to the delusions of these troubled people.
Oh, sure.
And I
yeah,
think
of course.
we the people have a right to reality. And I think women have a right to their own spaces. And so that means you got to ban the thing entirely. And oh my goodness, what these people say.
Yeah, again, not even just saying like we should have a separate but equal category, but that like, yeah, we got to ban it entirely. It's not allowed at all. Like, what does that realistically mean to these people? They really dodge the question of, you know, what is your answer to this question that you keep asking? You keep begging the question, what are we going to do about these transgenders? You keep saying we need to get rid of them. Like, how? What is the steps? What are the steps that you're going to take to erase transgenderism, to like ban transgenderism? What are you going to do?
They said that I was calling for the extermination of transgender people.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, what is the natural conclusion of ensuring that trans people can't access any kind of public services?
They said I was calling for a genocide against. I said, what? I must have missed that part of my show. When did I say that? I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people, because genocide refers to genes.
Oh yeah. I saw this conversation happening on Twitter. Genocide refers to genes. Like, okay, Michael Knowles. So let me propose a counteroffer. Allow me to propose a counteroffer. What if I want to eradicate Christianity? If I said I wanted to eradicate Christianity, I'm sure that he would go and type up the UN definition of genocide and say, well, you see here, I have it in my book here. It says that actually you're not allowed to try to erase Christianity because it's protected. It says right here, religion is one of the things that you can, that's a legitimate group to genocide people. You can't do that because that's like a protected shared trait. It's it absolutely has nothing to do with genes, you fucking idiot. Christ.
It refers to genetics.
No.
It refers to biology. And the whole point of transgenderism is that it has nothing to do with biology.
What the no, like, no, it actually might be hereditary. First of all. Second of all, it is some kind of like, it is a biological like thing happening in your body where your body, like the stress response to the hormones that your body is naturally creating, it's exactly like being allergic to your own sweat. Like, he's fully aware he's lying. Yeah, I mean, you just have to call it out. There are people out there who don't know how much he's just making shit up. And so you have to call it out. And like it's also worth it to say though, that like, this is, just dishonest. That's the thing about fascists. It's that they're not going to be honest. And we have a tendency to want to cling to the truth, and they don't care about the truth. So yeah, the longer that sentence about genes, the more stupid it's becoming. The etymology for genocide is from the Greek genos, for race or kind. I mean, I guess race you could say is genetic, but regardless, it's just very dumb. Oh my God. We got to get through this.
That's what the transgender activists say. They say, forget about biological sex. My gender expression doesn't have to have anything to do with my biological sex. Okay.
I mean, yeah, it literally, like, it's just clothes, you weird dude. Like, it's just clothes.
Well, then there can't be a genocide. That refers to...
Oh, okay, well, yeah, but that's not, like, wanting to... Okay, so he was just reducing being transgender down to cross-dressing. My bad. Yeah, it's not. It's more like being allergic to the hormones that your body naturally produces. Yeah, everything is genetic, social, and cognitive. It's a combination, all of them, right?
Genetics. But furthermore, nobody's calling to exterminate anybody, because the other problem with that statement is that transgender people is not a real ontological category. It's not a...
I hate the word ontological. Like, I think that people misuse this word a lot. Or at least, like, I think that they're using it to try to sound smarter than they are. Every time I hear someone say the word ontological, I just think of fucking Riley Grace Rochong saying that if you do sexual activity near a child, even if they don't know there's sexual activity going on, even if they have no idea it's happening, you've done ontological harm to them. Like, it's the only thing that I can think of is just a damn you, Destiny and Vosh, for making ontological a thing people online say. Is it their I mean, I'll blame Destiny for it. I don't know if that's Vosh's fault.
A legitimate category of being.
Oh, wow. He just said that being trans is not a legitimate category of being. Hold on.
It's not a legitimate category of being.
Wow. Like, I think that he also, this is the kind of guy who I think also would say that being gay is not a category of being. If your defense of your genocidal rhetoric is that the group of people you're speaking about can't technically be genocided, then you're not really any better off, right? If you're trying to, like, say that the group of people that you're calling to eradicate is not even it's like you're just, it's the narcissist thing, like, or I don't know if it's actually a narcissist thing or if I just read that a few times, but it's like, I didn't do that. And even if I did, it would have been okay because this, you know, like, and they just keeps building that way. Like, well, first of all, I didn't even say that. But if I did say that, here's why I would have been correct to say it. Like, it's, I don't know exactly what that pattern is called, but I've read about it a little bit before. Oh my God, it can't be a genocide. They aren't even people. True. Oh my goodness. Oh, we got to get through it.
There are people who think that they're the wrong sex, but they're mistaken. They're laboring under a delusion. And so
just classic, oldest thing in the book too, to call it a delusion. Oh my God.
we need to correct that delusion.
Oh, we need to correct that delusion. Okay. It seems like medically the best way to alleviate the distress of that illusion is to give hormones. And it kind of seems like what you're saying is that we should try to make it impossible for trans people to exist in the way that they are, which is, it means that you're trying to eradicate them. Like, if you, if you steal children and force them to stop participating in their culture, that's genocide. Like, if you take people and you say, okay, we're going to take away the things that you, like, if you make it impossible for someone to practice their religion, like, let's say it's not even illegal. You're not killing people who are Jewish. You're just putting a lot of impositions on the structural requirements for synagogues that don't exist for any other religious institution or other building, and making it so that synagogues can't realistically be open. And then, like, at the same time, there's also, like, roving street bands who will knock your little hat off your head and make it, like, impossible for you to even walk down the street. It's like the government is not necessarily the one doing the violent thing, but they are creating the situation where it's impossible for you to express your religion. And then if they're not adequately policing the harassment and violence that you then face, like, the people who are doing violence to you on the street are performing the actions that the state wants them to. Igor says genocide refers to the attempt to exterminate an entire specific group of people, whether on the basis of national, religious, or other affiliation. It refers to attempts to eliminate in whole or in part members of a group, like to reduce membership of the group. And yeah, the original definition is like race, religion, nationality, stuff like that. And then more recently, they've added a couple other things that kind of expanded it out to include like political differences and things like this. So then he's spoken at a CPAC, and let's see what that was all about, because I actually have heard a little bit less about this. So let's go.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism...
I mean, yeah, true. But yeah, no, yeah. If adults can do it, then kids can hypothetically. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was a transgender child. Thanks, Michael Knowles. Yeah, that happened to me. And I'm like 29 and a trans adult, so... It's my birthday month. Drop $1 in the dono bucket if you want.
Is false, as it is. If men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially since that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of so many people.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, letting people dress how they want and take hormones if they want, letting people exercise their personal individual autonomy over their own bodies is a threat to society and an imposition and a destruction of the rights of other people, apparently. Yeah, there's no harm being described. He's just saying, like, you're forcing me to indulge a delusion, and that's an infringement on my rights. I've arbitrarily decided that despite all of the scientific evidence to the contrary, like you can't make permanent and like sustainable physiological changes to your sex that fundamentally like reduce the difference between you and a cisgender person of the same gender down to like basically nothing. Okay. Take a breath. Breathe. Yeah, intersex people would not be real by this rule. Okay. It's short. Let's get through it.
If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
So the problem there is that they keep saying like transgenderism and the ideology, and we can't like allow this in public life. Like, and then the thing is that people correctly interpret that as thinking, oh, yeah, he's calling for trans people to be eradicated. So he says, for the good of society, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. And then people correctly interpret that as meaning like, that means you want trans people to no longer exist. You think trans people should not be in public. Like, if you want to erase transgenderism, like there is no way to erase transgenderism without erasing trans people. So, but then he says like, this headline is libelous and I demand a retraction. Like explain, yeah, Caitlin Burns says, explain what would happen to trans people when you eradicate transgenderism. And like all the replies are basically saying that all trans people would be eradicated. Like what do you think is the natural consequence here? It's a very disingenuous obfuscation. It's clear what you're saying. We know what you're saying. And if you say like, oh, well, I'm just saying that the gender ideology is something that we need to protect children from ending up in, is ignoring the fact that we're just people. It's not like an ideology led me. It's not like I'm a political trans person. It's not like I decided like, being a female sucks and I don't want to be that because of misogyny or whatever. And so for political reasons, I'm going to try to escape misogyny by transitioning. Or like, it's not like I decided, I think that the distinctions that Christians have made between men and women are ideologically stupid. And so I have decided to physically change my body in order to make it incongruent with this political ideology that the Christians are trying to impose on me. That's not how any of this fucking works. It's not like any trans person gets to this point through like choosing to embrace like an ideology. It's because we have like distress in our bodies and distress within society about the way that gender is constantly imposed on us. I mean, honestly, I'm not even sure at this point. I'm truly not even sure that they care about trans people in particular, or if we're just the scapegoat for them to take fascist power through. Like, I genuinely don't even know if they actually want to like get rid of trans people in particular, or if this is just the petty excuse that they're using. The idea that transgenderism must be eradicated from public life versus transgender people must be eradicated, it's a meaningless distinction to the historically literate. Nazis very specifically began excluding German Jews from public life years before the first extermination camp. Like during the first 6 years of Hitler's dictatorship from 1933 until the outbreak of war in 1939, Jews felt the effects of more than 400 decrees and regulations that restricted all aspects of their public and private lives. Thus, hundreds of individuals in all levels of government throughout the country were involved in the persecution of Jews as they conceived, discussed, drafted, adopted, enforced, and supported anti-Jewish legislation. No corner of Germany was left untouched. You can't say, I want to eliminate this type of, like, you're literally saying, like, I want to eliminate this type of being, transgenderism, because I don't think it's a legitimate mode of being. Like, that's literally what he said, was being transgender is not a legitimate mode of being for a person. Therefore, I'm going to have to enforce violently, potentially, like, I mean, not even violently, potentially. It's not potential. The idea that you are going to criminalize someone using the bathroom, for example, you are weaponizing the violence of the state to enforce a rigidly genocidal worldview. It's fascist. It's authoritarian. I've been saying this for 8 months now. 9 months? 9 months now, I think, that they are coming after trans people in the genocide way. I've substantiated this multiple times, but it's been going around again. Here's a thread from Alyssa. Trans people in the United States are now the victims of stage 8 of the 10 steps of genocide. And to be clear, we were already at stage 8 months ago. 9 months ago. So yeah, like I'm glad that other people are finally getting around to here. Like classification, symbolization, discrimination, dehumanization, organization, polarization, preparation, persecution, 10 stages of genocide by the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. Like she goes through just like I did in my video about it 8 months ago. That's like, yeah, here's all the different like examples of organization, polarization, dehumanization, all this shit, all the way up to the point where persecution, yeah, victims are identified because of their ethnicity or religion and death lists are drawn up. People are sometimes segregated into ghettos, deported or starved, and property is often expropriated. Genocidal massacres begin. Ron DeSantis ordering Florida universities to submit data on trans people. Texas Attorney General seeking state data on transgender Texans. In that case, it was trying to create a list of like driver's license gender marker changes, basically. Yeah, reports of Texas AG's attempts to collect data on trans adults. It's a terrifying overstep into the lives and privacy of LGBT people. Like they're just, yeah. Have you considered that libs say it's just hyperbole though? It's just hyperbole though. Exactly, NBJ. Yeah, it's the same distinction as quote eliminating Christianity being different from quote eliminating Christians. You can say, you know, we don't want to eliminate Jewish people. If you're in Germany back then, you might say like, we don't want to eliminate Jewish people. We just think that Jews have a disproportionate influence on culture and society, and that if we don't massively restrict their ability to influence society, then Germany as we know it will collapse. It's exactly the same fucking thing. They've said it makes us look like fools on the national stage if we let trans people be trans, then that shows that we're a weak country. You know, we're a joke to everybody else on the public stage. And they probably said the same shit. Yeah, they would have said Jewry. Global Jewry. That makes me fucking think of the golden one. It's literally what the Nazis said. They're like, you know, if we let these Jews control our country, then, you know, Germany will be weak and other people will take us over and everything. I hate that when mainstream news sites cover this, they will still say, some have called this genocidal, and then cite a couple of trans people on Twitter. There's still not prominent cis people in the media willing to actually use the G word themselves. I mean, frankly, I only just quite recently noticed a shift where trans people are openly calling it genocidal. I started calling it genocidal 8 or 9 months ago, and now you see folks like Aaron Reed using the word genocidal. It just took them a while to catch up to it. So now, these respectable seeming trans people who are already engaging in the politics, they are going to now be taking that rhetoric to the mainstream. It should have happened 9 fucking months ago, to be totally clear, but people are constantly telling me like, oh no, Luxander, you're trying to fearmonger and you're trying to drum up like hysteria and you're misapplying this word and the cisgenders won't listen to us anymore. If you keep saying it's genocidal, like people won't listen. So yeah. And keep in mind too, that it's not just that this dude is saying this stuff, but that there was an entire crowd of people who were cheering him on. He was saying, we need to ban transgenderism entirely. And a whole group of Republicans and conservatives were going like, yeah, woo, let's do it. Ah! They're like, ah, you know, they're cheering. You can hear them. Ah! And that's like the world we live in now. That's where we are now with this, is that people will call for basically making being trans in public increasingly illegal. And people are like, yeah, let's do that. Yay. And now every day I wake up and it feels like it gets faster. It is accelerating. You know, we're sticking, you know, right this second, we're on this one particular subject, but to be totally clear, things have rapidly gotten much worse in a number of different ways, not even directly affecting trans people. Anti-gay legislation is starting to be attempted to push through, and reducing like trying to take away the idea of the Democratic Party at all in Florida. Like, oh my God. Every day I wake up, I'm becoming more monstrous and angry. This is like why I'm trying to seek positivity in my life, y'all. And I'll wrap up the segment here soon because I'm like running out of things to say. I'm being alarmist because you should be alarmed. If you're not alarmed, then you have a death wish, IMO. Just like if you're going out without a mask right now, you have a death wish, IMO. You need to start acting like the situation is dangerous, because it is. You know, as much as it's not like fun for any of us, we will probably have to consider moving to safer states or moving to safer countries and like focus on establishing networks of support so that we can help people change the laws in the places where they live, but also give them the option to get the hell out if necessary. A healthy dose of alarmism is self-preservation, not gonna lie. I'm not negative, okay? To be clear, I'm not a negative person. I'm a realist. It's not my fault that the world is terrible. It is. It's terrible. And there are some people out there, listen, I understand on Jolly in the YouTube chat saying I'm never gonna move from my home in Texas. Some people are really committed to staying in the place where they live, and people own houses and stuff, and it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying to give up the fight in the States. I'm just saying that there is a realistic probability, not a realistic possibility, y'all, a realistic probability that things will get dramatically worse before they get better, and that you need to have plans. Like, you need to have capital P plans for your will, for your children's well-being. Like, you need to have capital P plans for potentially, like, imagine the worst thing that could happen and then plan for that. You can hope that that doesn't happen, hope for the best, plan for the worst, assume that there's a possibility that someone is going to break down your door and like drag you kicking and screaming out of your house, V for Vendetta style. Because it could be real any day now. Honestly, like, I would not be surprised. It's not being alarmist. The alarm is ringing because you're in danger. Thank you so much for watching. It's March, which means it's my birthday month, which means it's a great time to join up on Patreon if you'd like to do that. I want to shout out some of my patrons today. We have Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvak, Jovian F. Gaudreau, Amanda B., Danielle McDonald, Sarah A., Athiette, Michelle Winter, R. Halverson, Wellington Marcus, Elizabeth Bartell, Suzanne Maynard, Nova, Sojo, Mr. Atheist, and Kevin Young.